Ladies and gentlemen, just before we start another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, if you are listening on YouTube, just remember that we are now on Spotify. So if you want the uninterrupted version of this episode, please head down to the link in the description, check us out there, and follow us on Spotify. Thank you, team. On with the episode.
One thing I'll always say is that the team is bigger than everyone. You know, there's no question about that. No one individual is bigger than that. I'll always sit by that, and I'll always stand by that. You fight for the team and its needs and the direction, and whatever you create that culture there, whatever it is. So, you know, in terms of dealing with behaviour, we've got to try and find a way that these individuals will fight towards that. What do they need in order to feel part of that? And yeah, just sort of work on that basis, really.
Just before we get into another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, team, sorry to interrupt you again, but just a reminder that we are now looking for podcast episode sponsors. So if you have a small business or you know someone that does, please send them our contact information, team. The email is down in the description box below, and we will send info of what the sort of sponsorship consists of, and then how your amazing business can be promoted to our amazing audience. Thanks, team. On with the episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. This is another version of what makes a good coach, and unfortunately, I couldn't find anyone else apart from Paul today. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
Big time, yeah, already.
No, obviously, Hungary national team coach, cricket coach, formerly of Gibraltar national team as well, head coach, which is obviously why, unfortunately, I know who he is. Again, shots fired straight away. Only joking. But no, Paul, thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So I'm going to stitch you up again straight away. Third time in the space of 40 seconds. I've got the timer on here. A little bit of an icebreaker question. Don't know if you watched any of the previous episodes so far. In your kit bag, it's fair to say that as a coach, you need to take a lot of kit. You know, flexi stumps, you know, the flexor, the one, the side arms, mitt. But if you only had one tool to use for an entire session, what you got to use?
Fielding bat.
Fielding bat. Okay, what happens if he's trying to catch in it? What, are they underarming it in?
I've got a keeper. I can catch it one-handed if they're underarming it in. Yeah, like whatever, roll it in. There's no problem with that. All right. There's kind of a story behind it in a way as well, because I mean, look, when I move on to my level 4 or the specialist coach in qualification, you know, you have to break down exactly what you want to do as well. And one of the things I want to go in is to, you know, fielding and wicket keeping as such. Now, I absolutely love running a fielding session and so on anyway. So for me, that's the perfect thing. Not being funny, anyone does it as well, don't they? Pick up a bat, hitting balls to one another, even, you know, just stood on the boundary, whatever. Like, you get the little semicircle going.
Heads.
Yeah, fielding bat. Always.
Flow.
Always.
Fair enough. He's broken it down as well, ladies and gents. A lot of people just give me straight answers, so I appreciate that. Anyway, so obviously, like I alluded to before, Paul now obviously currently and just announced last week Hungary men's national team coach, which is brilliant. Congrats, mate. Formerly that obviously of Gibraltar national team and development as well, which is absolutely outstanding. Obviously knew him for a number of years, which is brilliant. So obviously I've got an idea as to your background, Edge, but from the beginning, like starting us off, do you want to give us a bit of an idea for the audience to know like sort of where your pathway has gone up until today, and then obviously we can crack on from there.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, to be honest with you, when I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do anyway. So I was sort of in a bit of a lull, you know. And, you know, go from college from GCSE is a stereotypical sports B-Tech, you know, the whole thing. And sort of partway through the second year, we'd done our leadership. And, yeah, it wasn't exactly like a coaching thing, but it was obviously just leading a session, you know, just to oversee what was going on. And that sort of sparked. And then I was like, okay, I quite enjoyed that. Let's do that. The next year was a coaching a year just of coaching qualification, and that really excited me. I got a bit more of an idea that, you know, that's sort of the route I want to do. You know, I love my cricket anyway, as you're well aware, and just put the two together. Oh, big time. Just put the two together, and it sort of went from there. You know, once I'd finished that, I got linked up with a coaching company, which was linked with my college, and then with another one as well. I'd only worked in for a short period of time. And then I'd got an opportunity to work for Lincolnshire Cricket Board. And I'm like, I'm working in cricket. Like, that's my dream job at 19. Like, it was the weirdest feeling. But yeah, it was exciting. I was nervous as hell. absolutely nervous as hell. You know, you're looking after like county age group kids and stuff like that. And you know, I managed to get a little bit in the under 19s, but didn't much before that. And I'm like, these kids are unbelievable. Like, sort of overseeing what's going on there, but obviously like school stuff, camps, etc., etc. So did that for sort of 5 or 6 years. A couple of trips to Australia, which was playing and coaching based. You know, I oversaw the club's training sessions, which was a completely different level. Like that, you know, cricket in Australia is just ridiculous. You know, not to slate my own club, I love them to bits. You know, sometimes in previous years we've had sort of 5 or 6 people turning up on a, you know, Wednesday or Thursday, and they have 2 training sessions a week. And on the Thursday for training, I think in Australia we had about 65 people. You know, you're trying to coach 65 people in the training session. It just is, it's crazy. You know, it's absolutely bonkers, but it's just their love for the game. It was sort of at a point when I was in a bit of a lull with the game as well, not necessarily coaching, but that, you know, and that really sort of kick-started it again for me. So sort of come back from there, had a bit of a year where I was unsure what I was going to do, tried to set my own business and didn't quite work out. And then the opportunity arose for Gibraltar. A mate sent me the job application via Twitter. I'm not sure if I ever told you that. And then I applied from there and just got the job. And it's sort of gone from there, really. You know, obviously had 2.5 years there. Whilst there, you know, obviously did some stuff with the national team, which was, you know, an unbelievable experience. Just wanted to throw myself into, you know, everything I could do, you know, and obviously try and get these contacts, speak to different people, learn from them, and sort of so on from there. You know, I'd done my level 3 sort of coaching badge at that stage. Also did the Gary Kirsten Elite Coach Ed course as well, which was honestly unbelievable. So I'm still constantly learning as we go. And yeah, sort of from there, obviously, having left Gib, I've sort of set up my own business and stuff again, which has been really good, to be fair. I've had, you know, a lot of work in terms of club coaching.
Link in the description as well, by the way.
Okay.
Link in the description to everything.
What a man, what a man. Yeah, some one-to-one stuff, you know, schoolwork and so on. And then I'm also doing a bit of a part-time job with Cambridgeshire Cricket as well, overseeing the sort of foundation age groups, so 10s, 11, 12 boys and under 11 girls. And, you know, just managing that space and making sure all the coaches are happy, they've got everything they need, same with the managers, you know, grounds, this, that and the other. So, and then obviously, as of late, yeah, Hungarian national team coach, which is seriously exciting. Having spent the weekend with the guys, they were brilliant, absolutely brilliant crack, good fun, great energy about them. And I can't give too much away, but we've got some really exciting sort of news and things coming out in the next sort of couple of months as well as a team. So it's good. Really looking forward to the next sort of hopefully few years with these guys too.
What a number of accolades that is so far, and more to come for sure. More to come. So, with all that experience behind your belt thus far, I think you should be able to answer this question all right, to be fair, having spoken to you a lot. What makes a good coach?
Someone you can create a good connection with, I think, is probably the most important thing. Someone you can trust is a massive thing. Once you create that relationship and start building upon that, I think you start, it's a bit of a weird thing, you start running through brick walls for them. You know, I remember my first coach years ago, a guy along a certain cricket club called Jeff Smith. Now, he used to do some of the county training at Lincolnshire, and he was brilliant. The way he was with us all, I mean, I think we were just so young and enthusiastic as well, and he just, you know, built that together and just let us get roll with it, you know. But he was so intelligent with everything that he did, made sessions fun. But then anything he asked you of you, and then when he tried to push you and challenge you, you just accepted it and moved forwards. You know, I remember there was a time in training where I was getting really annoyed almost with him and how he was going about it. But he spoke to me at the end of the session, you know, arm around me and said, look, you know, I know you can do it. I'm pushing you to be better, that sort of thing. And, you know, Mum was sort of stood there and almost sort of looking at me like, I told you so. Just kind of one of those. But because we built that relationship and trust over a period of years, like, you know, you just sort of run through brick walls for him. But yeah, I think that's, you know, having that trust, building that relationship is the foundation of everything you do. You know, you could turn around and give people tips, this, that and the other, but it gets to a point where if you don't trust them, it's difficult to get those messages across a little easier. That's what I would say.
And then how has your sort of coaching like evolved off what you learned as a player? Or how much has it learned off the course of being educated in the level 1, 2, 3, and then the Gary Kirsten stuff? For you, was it all about experience that you gained? Or was it all about sort of throughout those levels, you get kind of taught exactly how to coach, because I know for me, I value experience over education by an absolute mile, but that depends to a certain extent, because you got to have the background knowledge first. So despite me saying, right, experience over anything, don't bother with education, no, because I think about it every day, and it's a case of like, you do need a basic level of understanding first, and then where you go with that is completely up to you. So what was it for you, Edge? Was it a case of sort of learning from other coaches like you just mentioned, or was it learning through sort of level 1, 2, 3, and then Mr. Kirsten?
I think it's a whole combination of things. You know, you hit the nail on the head with most of it in saying that experience is a huge part of obviously what you're doing. You know, you work with so many different groups, you know, you have lots of different challenges that you have to work through, you know, and let's be obviously, you know, you might work with male, female, you know, a whole variety of groups. And that sort of shapes what, you know, how you become as a coach. You know, you get some difficult challenges with some interesting behaviour or whatever as well. And those sort of experiences sort of shape how you see things and look at things. But doing these different courses, you know, when I did the level 3, to me, that was, my mind was blown, absolutely blown. And then doing the Gary Kirsten thing almost straight after, which was, you know, ideal and amidst COVID and whatever, having the time to do it. I mean, those 2 courses, the experiences I've had from them will sit with me for life forever, you know, and what it's sort of opened up, you know. And this is where it's changed me as a person, as a coach, definitely. It's kind of one of those things, you know, you know, young and naive, it was kind of one of those that I'm like, you know, do as I say sort of thing, you know, set this up, you know, you're not really sort of thinking of an overall picture at times, but, you know, as you have those experiences, you sort of, you know, start saying, okay, well, I can't do this, I can do, you know, that works for me, but it doesn't work, you know, does that work for that person? It doesn't quite work for that person. So you start having to think outside of the box a little bit, you know, you've got, you know, you might have a drill or an exercise that you might think, okay, that works better, but actually someone else doesn't respond to that. So now it's trying to open up your sort of horizons and be creative in the ways that you can get a message across simply. So from the sort of learning and educational side, I'll say that simplicity of messages and then just building a relationship. You know, I think when you're a bit younger, you don't often sort of see that. You're just in the case of, right, as you say, experience, you know, this job, you know, whatever. But just, you know, you actually build a relationship. You speak to people, get to understand them, you know, things that they like, things that just, you know, and just have that trust with that person. And I said, they'll, you know, seeing in a couple of cases, they'll want to run for a brick wall for you almost to, you know, to almost sort of feel as though they're trying to repay that favour. It's never anything that you expect, but, you know, if they're willing to do that based on what you've done, then I think as a coach, you're in a good spot.
But what about sort of patience with players? Because you mentioned sort of individual sort of.
I need it with you.
Yeah. What about What about sort of like sort of a lot of patience with individuals, because like you said, it's very individual based. One player is going to be very different to another player, and it depends on the aura of that person. I know for myself that I need a lot of time with a coach to be able to sort of judge them based on how they are and things like that, you know, and to get the best out of me, like, it takes a long time and a lot of patience. So how were you able to deal with me basically throughout the entire time I was at Gibraltar, basically?
You gotta, the thing is, you gotta understand is everyone's different, aren't they? Like, you know, there's a reason that you want to spend more time with a coach and so on and that, you know, your motivations are a lot different to others. You know, and I'm not saying, when I say a lot different, you know, at the end of the day, you want to be as good as you can at cricket and you want to win, okay? And it's the same with a lot, but how they go about it is in different ways. So you get the challenging behaviour and you've got to work out why they're being like that, you know, and it's okay, you know, you get it in every team. But I think the biggest thing is that if you can, you know, that's why I say building these relationships is so important, because once you start building that trust, they have an understanding as to why and what. And then, you know, you do with their thought process, try and get what you're saying is a critical mass within the team, and then build from there. You know, one thing I'll always say is that the team is bigger than everyone. You know, there's no question about that. No one individual is bigger than that. I'll always sit by that, and I'll always stand by that. You fight for the team and its needs and the direction and whatever, and you create that culture there, whatever it is. So, you know, in terms of dealing with behaviour, we've got to try and find a way that these individuals will fight towards that. What do they need in order to feel part of that? yeah, just sort of work on that basis, really.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but just a reminder, we are now looking for podcast episode sponsors. So if you have a small business or you know someone that does, please send them our contact information team. The email is down in the description box below, and we will send info of what the sort of sponsorship consists of, and then how your amazing business can be promoted to our amazing audience. Thanks, team. On with the episode. Just because someone probably, and this might be sort of against what you mean here, but you can give me a better idea. For me and for a lot of others, expressing your emotion and like getting upset, getting pissed off because you've not done well or you've done something, it's not, for me, it may come across as like a very selfish on myself manner, but it's always just because, like you mentioned, I want to win. I want to win games for Gibraltar and make sure that we sort of do as best we can. So it's not it wouldn't be an excuse thing for me. If I got out, it wouldn't be an excuse. I would always just throw everything out and get emotional because I haven't been able to contribute towards the team. So like for yourself,
I've seen that.
Like,
I've seen that.
Yeah, what's the balance between sort of being able to understand that and being all right, he's emotional because he wants to do really, really good for the team here, versus this guy is getting really pissed off. He's making 10 million excuses as to why he's got out. I'm not going to distance myself, but I'm going to give more time a day to someone like on the first instance.
It's an interesting one. I mean, like I just tried to say, is that everyone is different and manages things in a different way. Okay, you know, you can set the expectation out as a team and a collective as to how you want to go about things, right? And then it's up to you how you manage that. So you're throwing your kit, this, that, and the other. We've had a number of conversations, and I'll say to you, have a bit of belief in yourself. Don't be too angry. Give yourself a bit of time and manage it in the right way. That's all I'll say. And ultimately, that is, me as a coach telling you how we can try and, control that better, okay? Whether you then take that away and do that is entirely up to you, but then you've got to understand that you've got to try and see it for the team's perspective. And that's how I'd always see it from that. Sometimes people need, those excuses, this, that, and the other, but then it's managing different people in a different way. So, for instance, to be brute, the conversations we've had, I'll have an arm around you, I'll have a chat with you, say, things are going to be okay. Someone might need a rocket up their ass and say, look, this is crap, all right? We need to talk about this. Let's sort of, what are you going to do to make this better? It's just different with different people, isn't it? Different people, different personalities, the way they go about things, and so on from there. So, like I said, mate, it happens, frustration leaks out, but it's trying to find that sort of common goal in and amongst the frustration and what you can do afterwards to make it better. And as long as you're learning from that experience and you're better next time round, then you're on to a win.
And that's probably the hardest thing for a coach, isn't it? It's not really technically coming up with sessions and coming up with how to make the team better in a certain way. It's more sort of making the team gel together, isn't it? Because when you're always going to have a clash of personalities. You're never going to have a perfect team. There's always going to
oh yes.
And if you do build this perfect team, there's always going to be a case where there's injuries and things like that, and the team needs to be rebuilt again, isn't it? So that's the number one sort of cause of like sort of difficulty for a coach, I suppose, especially with something like cricket where it's, especially at the sort of associate level that we're at, and I think it's fair to agree that we don't really have this multidisciplinary team that we might have at something like I alluded to before. I haven't really mentioned it yet, but when I go and start in Warwickshire in September, they've got 3 physios, 3 strength and conditioning coaches, a batting coach, a fielding coach, an assistant batting coach. So they've got all these different roles. So they have 12 or so people to be able to contribute towards this. When we're at the associate level, maybe you've got a physio, maybe you've got a head coach, and if you're lucky, maybe you've got a strength and conditioning coach. So how do you kind of deal with a squad of 14, 15 players and try to gel? Because there gets to a certain point where you need to sort of consider the starting 11 to a certain extent, no?
So, I mean, it depends sort of what timing you're talking about here. So say, for instance, we're talking pre-tour. So sort of scrap that together, really, actually. We'll go even further back than that. It's initially, you've got to try and find what the motivation is, okay? So me as a coach, I know what I want to try and get across. I know what my coaching style's like and how I'm going to try and get the messages across. I know what I expect. I know what I want. But one of the biggest things for me, and I did this with the guys with Hungary, obviously when we had our session, is sit down and, right, here's a blank canvas. What do you guys want from this? What are your expectations of me? What are your expectations of one another? Where do we want to go? You know, so we've set ourselves a target of where we want to go in the rankings, and so on from there. And then that's your starting point. Okay, so then it's not just a case of me holding people accountable. Everyone else can do it amongst themselves. And I think it then gives you some sort of guidelines to sort of set and follow. And then actually, you know, that's when you really start to see, you know, whether that sort of thing starts taking shape. It's more about creating a culture around that. And then actually, you know, that sort of builds. That doesn't happen overnight either. You know, you've got to understand that doesn't happen overnight. You get people trying to push the boundaries and challenge it and, you know, whatever else. But once you start sort of building those foundations, and actually I think it's easy to manage when you get to sort of tours and tournaments, because, you know, as you say, everyone's got different personalities, everyone does different things. And it's a case of when you're on tour, trying to manage that, and then just managing the injuries as best as we possibly can. Well, we had everyone was in Malta, bang, straight back to the pool, get in the pool, chill out, relax as much as you can, and obviously sort of keep ourselves fit and ready.
Unless you break 2 digits and have to go to hospital, mate.
Oh, yeah, the claw, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, look, I still got it now, look.
Oh, don't worry, I did mine this weekend as well, so that's clever. Anyway.
No, but, and you mentioned sort of dealing with injuries there. Do you always have to almost, how do I pronounce it here? Sort of deal with that as it comes in a certain way? It sounds incredibly bad, but you have to deal with it how it comes. You can't be stressing about sort of, mate, what happens if we get this injury because this guy isn't our best player at the moment, and this guy probably is a bit out of form, but, you know, I trust him a lot. He's come good most of the time. Is it almost about taking it as it comes and dealing with it in the moment rather than stressing about it? And it's difficult. I know for a fact that I stress a hell of a lot. So, and how is important is it to, like, sort of take it day by day or take it hour by hour when you're on tour?
Yeah, I mean, well, not being funny, we had the perfect example, didn't we? Where we had Avi playing off one leg for most of the Valletta Cup, didn't we? You know, and it's difficult. Obviously, let's put it brutally. You know, Avi's was our best player. You know, you'd have 4 overs out of him, say one of the safest hands, a gun in the field, and would score runs for fun. Like, and it's difficult. Being your captain as well, you know, you want that person out on the field and doing a job. You know, it's not easy. You have to try and manage that situation as well as you can. You know, and I think my regret on that sort of day where, you know, obviously against Bulgaria was probably the fact of the little bit of hysteria around it. I think everyone was then worrying and thinking what's going on, what's happening, and probably should have controlled the situation a little bit better. But look, you live and learn. I think the biggest thing is you can only go off what they say and then try and manage that. If you're lucky enough to have a physio, which we didn't on that tour, so again, it's not easy, but you've got to go on what they say as well as how they feel. But then you've got to make that judgment call. Okay, and then when you make that judgment call, and if you do drop them, then you just have to deal with the consequences, not necessarily the consequences, but maybe, you know, you might get a bit of backlash, you know, and that's understandable. You know, they're desperate to play and want to play. And then obviously if they do play, you know, and things don't work out, then you're going to sit there, you know, and you've got to take the blame potentially for that. Or if it does work out, then you're thinking, wiping the sweat off your brow and saying, thank you very much. It's just one of those things, mate, trying to manage as much as you can. You know, I think a lot of this comes back to pre-tour anyway, you know, and saying, you know, with cricket now and T20, you know, the T10 format is an absolute joke. It's so fast-paced, so quick. Yeah. You have to be fitter to get around and last through it. You know, these tournaments, you know, 5 games of cricket in 5 days sometimes, or more or less, you know, whatever it is, it's a long, tough slog. You have to be fitter in order to get through to the end of the week. It's as simple as that. You know, you're going to pick up niggles here and there. It's just the nature of the beast, but try and be as fit and as well conditioned as you possibly can, ready for the tournaments ahead. So, yeah, it's not easy injuries, mate. Believe me. Trying to manage that space.
And you mentioned sort of making bold decisions and potentially them coming off or not. This is an interesting one, which I was always going to mention, regardless sort of how the podcast was going to flow. Selecting new players into a squad, and this again, this can be the exact same for a footballer, for a rugby coach as well, if they're listening as well. With my experience with Gibraltar, when I first went away, we had a certain Louis Bruce coming up on the scene. Still, I was 13 at the time, I think he was, when I first went away, and you could start to see how he was progressing and things like that. And he wouldn't be taken. It was almost very similar to when I was even younger and I was sort of coming up and I wasn't taken because I was a little bit too young. and that demographic was still there, and I'm going to get a lot of sleep for that, oh my word. But anyway,
no problem, mate.
How difficult was it to justify selecting someone like Louis? Because I knew how much he had to the table. You did as well. But for a lot of people on the outside were selecting this 15-year-old kid, not how difficult is it, but sort of, was there a lot of thoughts into outside of cricket, or was it always that Louis is an absolute gun? Because we know that Louis is an absolute gun, and I knew that he was good enough, well, a few years before he actually got selected. But what was it for you in that sense, selecting someone and then throwing him into opening the batting? That was another completely different side of the story as well, wasn't it?
Louis is an exceptional example, mate, because I mean, I worked with him the entire time I was there in gym, and you could just see it straight away. The thing for me is, it wasn't just his cricket skills; it was his passion for the game. He's a bigger badge than me, man, and that's saying something. That's tough work. But it's just his work ethic as well. Just not just him, Samar, even yourself as well. Anytime he was free and about, you guys were in the nets and working hard, and that you can't teach that. That's the sort of stuff that you do in your own time behind the scenes when no one's watching. He would just have that in abundance, and I think in terms of opening the batting, I think we was looking at where can we go about it, how can we go about it, and he's a fantastic batter, one of our better batters on that first tour as well anyway, and we said, what, let's just give it a go. Let's give it a go and see what he does. And let's look at his record now. I mean, he's definitely not looking back now.
He's all right. He's done okay.
Yeah, look, I mean, honestly, I've got a lot of time for Lou. I think he's a great kid. He's a fantastic cricketer as well. He's still got bits he needs to learn. I think that's the thing. And I don't mean that in a bad way either. I think, and I hope he understands that if he listens to it as well, and say, actually, there's always areas that you can improve and whatever. And it's the same.
No, I think he knows that. I think he knows that for sure, and that's always based off the fact that how sort of in detail he is within sessions, and then But I think that what you mentioned there about doing the extra hours, I think that and this is not blowing smoke up your ass. I think it's a lot to do with the vibe that the head coach would set out, because if a coach is about achieving big things and a coach is about going in with the ideas that you want to win games of cricket, then bloody hell, we're going to work for you. It's almost like the vice versa to what you said, being like, so I want to work hard for the team to be able to sort of coach them towards victories, like we mentioned at the start of the podcast. We would want to work, like, a lot of the times, it would be, bloody hell, I want to make Edge proud. Bloody hell, I want to make Mum and Dad proud. Bloody hell, I want to make Matt and Nick proud, my brothers, and things like that. So it almost comes down to the vibe of that the coaches put across. And is that important for you when you first come in the setup? Like you said, with the Hungary side, you kind of said, what do you want out of me? And because then you so this is from my perspective, that's a brilliant question to ask, because if you're saying, right guys, what do you guys want out of me as your coach? And then after you get that, then you're going to be like, okay, this is what I want out of you guys now.
Mate, it's I mean, it was great to have you guys with such enthusiasm to want that. I mean, the thing is, for me, you know me well enough as a person now, you know me well enough as a coach now. I always want to bring some sort of energy, and I'm always going to be positive. I'm always going to look at the bright side. Negatives, I'm going to sit there. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have honest discussions. We're not, we're not about the blame game. If it starts that, we can cut the crap. Like, there's no point about that. There's no need for the blame game. We are upbeat. We take every positive we possibly can. We understand what we did wrong, and we move forwards. Okay. But when we have a team meeting, and in that space that's your time, and you are completely open and honest, all right? And then you understand, get everything out there, then it's done. Then you move forward, okay? And that was what I said to the lads from Hungary, was just saying, look, now is your time. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. I don't know anything or much even about Hungarian cricket. I don't. I'll be totally honest about it. I'm coming into this fresh new setup and trying to work out what the hell is going on. And this is it. It's their time to, get all the information out. And tell me what they want and what they need, and they was all keen, they're upbeat, they're positive, they want this, that. I'm like, hey, right, let's try and put it together. So it's now up to me, Duncan, who's the assistant coach, and then Stefan as well as team manager, to try and shape that sort of program for these guys moving forward. So, yeah, absolutely. Just going back to your point and what you said, you wanted to do well for me, that's really pleasing to hear now. I never expect, you to sort of come across, to sort of turn around and say those sort of things. But I'm glad that we, in my eyes, I feel as though we built a strong enough relationship for us to, to just keep working hard. And, we knew the expectations and where we wanted to go as a team. Not everyone's, as forthcoming as you are and wanted to do it for the team. Let's be real about that. Everyone has different interests and motivation.
It's always going to be different, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got to try and manage that as a way, But yeah, working with the likes of yourself and Louis, you guys made it so much easier because you wanted to be there.
Yeah.
You wanted to work hard. You wanted to be in every game. You wanted to, to play. You wanted to go on tour, and these sort of things. And like I said, those sort of, they're values that are so understated and are so important as well. So yeah, mate, that's more kudos for you guys more than anything. I'm just sort of trying to help coach you guys, how to work better towards a team goal. And that for me is essentially it. And hopefully build you as better cricketers as we go along. You guys putting all that effort in was just pleasing to see and be a part of, mate. It'd have been great to have a bit more time, but things happen. That's okay. But I'm glad I got managed to spend some time coaching you.
Yeah, mate. And what I learned a hell of a lot from this bloke. So, and just before we ask the last question, mate, and you've just alluded to it there, and it's always something that sticks with me until I retire and even beyond. So, one day I was in the cafeteria at Cardiff City's academy's sort of training ground in Forest, and we literally just having some grub there, and Craig Bellamy walks into the room, and obviously Craig Bellamy, former as you do, former under 18 manager at Cardiff City, coach at Cardiff City, sorry, and obviously player for Liverpool. Being a Liverpool fan, know exactly who he was. Obviously, I'm in a professional sort of environment now. I'm a sports scientist. I'm a professional sports scientist. I need to keep cool, but inside I was like, holy shit, this is Craig Bellamy. He just walked into the room. And he kind of sat all these scholars down because they'd I hadn't started working with a lot yet, but from the vibe I'd got, they'd started to get a little bit comfortable with the environment they were in, and he sat everyone down and he said, lads, this is your one opportunity to play professional football here, and you're not going to throw it away. But what's most important thing is that you're a better person than you are a football player. Is that important for you as a coach, to build good people as opposed to good cricketers? Because I think everyone sees Edge was a terrible coach. He didn't make any good cricketers. Edge was a brilliant coach because he made the next Ricky Ponting, or he made the next Joe Roots. Or Edge is a brilliant coach because he had like a really good solid group of people, and then there were good cricketers on the side.
Oh, mate, that's pretty simple for me. And it's kind of one of those things. People say it's proper cliche, but actually, for me, it's a case of it comes back to that common goal. And if as a group of people, you reach that, it's mainly based around trying to create, someone who's going to be a good person. They come out with the right things, like they're going to work hard, they're respectful to people, all these sort of things. That's so much more important than just a case of, right, we've got a good cricketer. Because I think if you get those things, drill those things into a person, that's going to come. That's going to come because he's going to keep working hard. He's going to, be a student of the game is another one as well. Look at things constantly, all this sort of information, sort of talk about things, discuss, and one thing as well that I had a lot with yourself, Sam Arth and Louis, all the young lads, was that they would question as well. Like I might put something out and would question back. And that's
why
fine.
are you doing this? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you doing this? Is that you sure this is right? Maybe we can look at doing this. Absolutely. I would rather you do that, and people challenge the thought process. Because if you feel as though you have a better way, then let's talk about it. I've got no problem with that, and that's the point about the knowledge of the game and understanding it. I would love to turn around and say, I know everything about cricket, but I don't, and that's fine. It's trying to get you guys to understand your game, and then you sort of take that to the next level as well, not just on, based around myself. You have to have the want for that. And I think those are the sort of skills that, are going to make you a better person. So it's got to be a better person first, working towards being a better cricketer and a better teammate.
Unbelievable, mate. So, leading on to the final question, and this is one which I'm going to start asking with the next sort of crop of people who come on for this segment, is what is your advice for anyone who wants to be a future coach, or any coaches out there at the moment who are possibly sort of looking for a little bit of inspiration here as to how can they be a better coach?
Dream big, stick to it. Just be a constant student of your field. You know, whatever it is, just constantly keep working hard, doing your courses, developing and stuff like that, and throw yourself at every opportunity. You know, throw yourself at every opportunity. You know, I mean, as I said, with the Gibraltar job, moving abroad to live and work was a massive, massive step for me as a person, let alone a coach in the job. So, but I am forever grateful for the opportunity that I got, you know, for the experiences I've had, the people that I've met, the people that I've spoken to, the people that I've worked with because of it, and it's just going to hold me in good stead moving forwards. But throw yourself at the opportunities and just do it. Just do it and work it as you go along. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. You learn from it, you know, and go again. But absolutely, just throw yourself into opportunity, work your socks off and stick by it. You know, there's just to put that sort of stick by it in a context. There's a lad I play cricket with alongside called Barry Stanway. Now, I love Baz. He used to live in South Africa. He's absolutely crazy as well. Like, totally on my wavelength. And every time I speak to him, like in a bit of a deeper conversation, he goes, "Oh, so you're still doing the cricket thing?" I think he's almost doing it to keep pushing me, because I don't know whether he thinks I'm going to stop. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You know, I absolutely love my job and I love what I do, and I'm never going to stop doing that. But yeah, we just always have that chat, and I'm like, mate, absolutely. And he's like, good. And just keep going, you know, and he keeps pushing, keeps asking. And you need, I think, those sort of people around you to keep you on your toes a little bit too. So.
What an unbelievable way to finish there. I lost my words there for a sec. But no, mate, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom. I know for sure that this episode is going to do unbelievably well, because there are a lot of people that have worked with you and a lot of people that support you and could learn from you for sure. You know, still young, you know, despite how he looks. I'm joking.
Mate, there's so many greys up there now. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing.
No, but obviously a hell of a lot of experience from this.
That's what that is.
A hell of a lot of experience so far, and a hell of a lot still to come. So hopefully, fingers crossed. We wish Edge the very, very best with Hungary. Obviously, with his work in the minor county setup as well. And he's going to go far, this lad. You wait. So thank you very much, guys, for listening in. And thank you so much, Paul, for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Appreciate it.
No worries at all.